They didn't fight for a happy ending, they fought for the opposite. From iconic heroes to fan-favorite TV characters, these actors didn't just leave their roles, they asked to be killed off. Some wanted closure, some wanted freedom, and others thought death was the only ending that made sense. Here are the stars who believed the most powerful exit was a fatal one. Daniel Craig didn't see James Bond as immortal, he wanted the story to end. Craig decided early in his run as Bond that killing the character could give both himself and the franchise a clean break. There was resistance to the idea, and Bond continued for several films, but Craig never let go of it. In No Time to Die, the decision finally became reality. Bond is infected with nanobots that would fatally harm his partner and daughter if he touched them. Trapped and unable to escape, he sacrifices himself to keep them safe, closing Craig's era with a definitive, irreversible ending. Sigourney Weaver didn't fear killing off a sci-fi legend, she wanted it to stop. Weaver chose to end her run as Ellen Ripley with Alien 3 because she didn't want to play the character forever. She worried the franchise could lose its impact and felt uneasy about staying attached to the role indefinitely. With talk of future spin-offs and crossovers, she believed continuing might cheapen what the earlier films had built. Killing Ripley in Alien 3 allowed her to step away cleanly, closing the chapter on a character she was proud of rather than letting the series drag on endlessly. Patrick Dempsey didn't fight to save McDreamy, he was ready to move on. After 11 seasons as Dr. Derek Shepherd on Grey's Anatomy, Dempsey and the show's creator mutually decided it was time for the character to exit. He was worn down by the long hours and unpredictable schedule, and there was growing tension behind the scenes that made staying difficult. Instead of keeping the character around, the decision was made to end Shepherd's story with a fatal car crash. Dempsey later expressed satisfaction with how everything unfolded, seeing the death as a natural conclusion to his time on the show. Kal Penn didn't leave house because the story demanded it. He left because his life was heading somewhere completely different. After a season and a half as Dr. Lawrence Kuttner, Penn chose to step away from acting to pursue a career in politics. He had worked on Barack Obama's presidential campaign and was then offered a position inside the White House. With his exit decided, the show wrote Kuttner out abruptly, ending the character's story without warning. The shocking death reflected Penn's sudden departure and marked a permanent break from the series as he shifted into public service. Nina Dobrev didn't cling to immortality. She was ready to let Elena Gilbert go. After 6 seasons leading the Vampire Diaries, Dobrev chose to step away when her contract ended so she could pursue new opportunities. By that point, Elena had already died multiple times, and her final exit leaned fully into that fate. The story placed Elena under a spell that kept her in a coma, sealing her inside a coffin while her best friend remained alive. It was a definitive pause on the character, marking Dobrev's clean break from the role and clearing the way for the next chapter of her career. Jaime Lee Curtis didn't want Laurie Strode living with the wrong ending. She wanted it fixed, even if it meant death. After Halloween H20, Laurie was shown killing someone she believed was Michael Myers, only for it to be revealed that the victim was actually an innocent paramedic. Curtis couldn't accept that outcome for the character. Because of that, she insisted Laurie be killed off early in the next film. In Halloween Resurrection, Laurie appears briefly before Michael hunts her down, stabs her, and throws her from a rooftop, closing that timeline with a definitive and brutal end. Bill Murray didn't want to quietly shuffle through a cameo. He wanted to go out swinging, even as a zombie. Murray was brought into Zombieland at the last minute, originally set to play a silent, living impaired version of himself. That didn't excite him. He asked if there was a way to have more to do, and suggested changes to the role. The result was a rewritten part with spoken and groan dialogue that ended in his character turning into a zombie. Instead of avoiding death, Murray leaned into it, helping shape one of the film's most memorable moments. Christian Serratos didn't want Rosita Espinosa to quietly ride off into another story. She wanted a real goodbye. After surviving years of chaos on The Walking Dead, Rosita could have lived on and even appeared in a spin-off. Instead, Serratos asked for the character to be killed off in the series finale. The producers agreed and gave Rosita a heroic ending, where she fights through walkers to save her daughter and later reveals she was bitten. The death gave the story emotional weight and gave Serratos closure, ending Rosita's journey definitively rather than leaving her future uncertain. Chyler Leigh didn't leave Grey's Anatomy suddenly. She wanted a real ending. After 5 seasons playing Lexi Gray, Leigh decided it was time to move on and told the show's creator that season 8 would be her last. She worked directly with the production team to give Lexi proper closure instead of leaving the character in limbo. Long hours and distance from her family made staying difficult, and she felt Lexi's journey had reached its limit. That decision led to one of the show's most shocking moments, with Lexi being killed off in a dramatic plane crash. Raymond Cruz didn't want to stick around as one of TV's most terrifying villains. He wanted out fast. While Tuco Salamanca was originally meant to have a much bigger role on Breaking Bad, Cruz asked the writers to kill the character. Playing Tuco was extremely demanding, and Cruz wasn't eager to return for multiple episodes. When asked to come back for an extended run, he agreed to appear only one more time, on the condition that Tuco would die. That decision led to Tuco's explosive end in a gunfight with Hank Schrader, cutting short a character who burned too hot to last. Jeffrey DeMunn didn't wait for zombies to decide his fate. He asked for it himself. After playing Dale Horvath from the very first episode of The Walking Dead, DeMunn chose to leave the show in Season 2. The decision came after original showrunner Frank Darabont was pushed out, something DeMunn strongly objected to due to their long working history. Unwilling to continue without him, DeMunn told the producers to kill his character. Dale's brutal death wasn't a surprise twist written for shock value. It was a deliberate exit that DeMunn described as a huge personal relief. Frank Dillane didn't want Nick Clark to linger. He was ready for the character to be done. After several seasons on Fear the Walking Dead, Dillane felt the show had reached the end of an era for him. The series had gone through major changes behind the scenes, the workload was intense, and he missed living in Europe. Believing Nick's story had already achieved what it needed to, Dillane asked to leave. His exit was written as a fatal shooting by the vultures, giving the character a clear and final ending, rather than dragging his journey out any longer. McLean Stevenson didn't want to stay where his character was fading into the background, even if it meant a shocking ending. Stevenson chose to leave MASH after 3 seasons because Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake was getting less focus as other characters took center stage. Rather than giving Blake a quiet send-off after his honorable discharge, the producers made a bold choice. His plane was shot down on the way home, killing the character suddenly and permanently. The decision stunned audiences and sparked massive backlash, but it delivered a definitive exit that matched Stevenson's decision to move on. Julian Glover didn't want to quietly fade into the background. He wanted Grandmaster Pycelle gone. After spending years on Game of Thrones, Glover felt his character was no longer being taken seriously and had become uninteresting to play. He told the producers he didn't want to continue if Pycelle had nothing meaningful left to do. Although the show didn't kill the character off immediately, Glover stayed on until the Season 6 finale. Pycelle's story ended with a brutal assassination arranged by Qyburn, and Glover was happy with how the death played out, enjoying the dramatic send-off. John Diehl didn't want Detective Larry Zito to just drift off screen, he wanted a real ending. After 3 seasons on Miami Vice, Diehl felt there were no longer any meaningful plans for his character. Zito wasn't getting much to do, and the direction didn't seem likely to change. Rather than quietly exiting the force, Diehl approved of a dramatic death. Zito was killed by a drug smuggler who had him injected with a lethal dose of drugs. Diehl believed that ending was stronger than a simple resignation, even though leaving the show came with career uncertainty. Denise Crosby didn't wait for a heroic upgrade, she asked to be written out. After just 1 season as Tasha Yar on Star Trek: The Next Generation, Crosby decided she didn't want to keep playing the same role for years. She felt the character's depth wasn't making it onto the screen and feared getting stuck doing something that no longer excited her. So she requested to leave, and the show honored it with a sudden, brutal death during a rescue mission. Yar was killed instantly by a hostile creature, ending her story without ceremony. Despite how abrupt it was, Crosby didn't regret the decision and was eager to move on. Brent Spiner didn't want Data to live forever. He wanted a real ending. After playing the android across multiple Star Trek films, Spiner felt there was a limit to how long he could realistically portray a character who never ages. He was already ready to move on years earlier, and even suggested killing Data off in a previous movie, but the idea was rejected. Eventually, he got his wish in Star Trek: Nemesis, where Data sacrifices himself to save his friends and destroy the enemy ship. For Spiner, the death finally closed the chapter on a role he felt had reached its natural end. Jessalyn Gilsig didn't want a long, brutal Viking death. She wanted a meaningful goodbye. As one of the original cast members of Vikings, Gilsig asked to leave after Season 2 because living overseas for long stretches made it difficult to handle family responsibilities. Even though the creator had future plans for Siggy, the decision was respected. Instead of dying in battle like many others, Siggy's story ended in a quieter but powerful way. She drowned after saving 2 children who had fallen into a frozen lake, giving her exit a heroic and emotional final moment that reflected who she truly was.